The Silent Arrival. First Contact Protocol. The vastness of space stretched endlessly in all directions as the Zephyrian exploration fleet moved through the cosmic void like a school of metallic fish. Commander Thane Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Wanderer, watching distant stars shift position as his massive armada traveled at speeds that would have been impossible just centuries ago. His pale blue skin reflected the soft glow of the ship's displays, while his large black eyes studied the navigational charts with practiced efficiency. The Zephyrian Empire had been exploring the galaxy for over 1,000 years, cataloging new worlds and making contact with primitive civilizations. Their approach was always the same: arrive with overwhelming force, establish communication, and integrate new species into their vast network of allied worlds. It was a system that had worked flawlessly for generations, bringing peace and prosperity to hundreds of star systems. "Commander, we're detecting an interesting solar system ahead," reported Lieutenant Kira Zahn from her position at the sensor station. Her tentacles moved gracefully across the holographic controls as she analyzed the incoming data. Third planet from the star shows signs of intelligent life, but their technology appears to be extremely primitive. Thane moved closer to examine the readings. The planet was a beautiful blue and green world, covered in vast oceans and continents that showed clear signs of civilization. Cities dotted the surface like glowing points of light, connected by networks of what appeared to be primitive transportation systems. Orbiting the planet were several small space stations and a scattering of basic satellites that looked decades behind Zephyrian technology. "How primitive are we talking about?" Thane asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had overseen dozens of first contact situations. "They appear to have just achieved basic spaceflight," Kira replied, her analysis continuing as more data flowed in. Chemical rockets, simple orbital mechanics, and what looks like early attempts at establishing permanent space habitats. Their military presence in space is almost non-existent. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of over 800 vessels of various sizes and configurations. Massive exploration ships carried scientific equipment and diplomatic personnel, while smaller escort vessels provided protection and support. The fleet's arrival in any solar system was an impressive sight, designed to demonstrate the Empire's technological superiority, while avoiding any appearance of hostile intent. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored her displays with growing excitement and concern. The Deep Space Monitoring Initiative had been tracking the approaching alien fleet for 3 weeks, watching as they moved through space with technology that far exceeded anything humanity publicly possessed. "Contact vector confirmed," she reported to her supervisor through encrypted channels. 817 vessels, various configurations, estimated arrival in Earth orbit within 6 hours. Dr. Chen had spent 15 years working for organizations that most humans had never heard of, tracking potential extraterrestrial threats and preparing responses that the surface world couldn't imagine. Her facility was connected to similar installations around the globe, all part of a network that had been built in absolute secrecy over the past 50 years. The irony wasn't lost on her that while the aliens saw a primitive civilization struggling with basic space technology, they were actually looking at the most elaborate deception in human history. Every satellite, every space station, every piece of technology visible from space had been carefully designed to present exactly the image humanity wanted potential visitors to see. Commander Voss ordered his fleet into standard first contact formation as they approached Earth's solar system. The massive ships spread out in a pattern that would be visible from the planet's surface, designed to appear impressive but not threatening. Advanced communication arrays began broadcasting friendship messages in hundreds of different languages and mathematical sequences, following protocols that had been refined over centuries of successful contacts. "Begin standard observation procedures," Thane commanded. "I want detailed scans of their technology, population centers, and military capabilities. We'll establish communication once we have a complete picture of their civilization. The Zephyrian sensors swept across Earth's surface and orbital space, cataloging everything they detected. The planet's population appeared to be concentrated in sprawling cities that showed clear signs of industrial development, but their technology seemed crude and inefficient. Their space-based assets were laughably primitive by Zephyrian standards, consisting mainly of communication satellites and basic research stations. What the aliens couldn't detect were the quantum-shielded facilities hidden beneath Earth's surface in the depths of its oceans and disguised as ordinary structures on every continent. Humanity's true technological capabilities were hidden behind layers of deception so sophisticated that even the most advanced alien sensors read exactly what they were designed to read. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the alien fleet's approach from her command post, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado Rockies. Her facility coordinated Earth's true defensive network, a system of technologies that made the Zephyrian Empire's capabilities look primitive by comparison. The room around her hummed with quantum computers and holographic displays that processed information at speeds the visiting aliens couldn't comprehend. They're following standard exploration protocols, she reported to the Global Defense Council. Non-threatening approach, peaceful communication attempts, and detailed scanning of our apparent capabilities. Everything is proceeding exactly as projected. The plan had been decades in the making. When humanity first detected the Zephyrian expansion pattern through deep space monitoring, scientists and military strategists had worked together to create the most elaborate masquerade in history. Every aspect of human civilization visible from space had been carefully orchestrated to present the image of a species that had barely begun to explore beyond their own planet. As the alien fleet settled into orbit around Earth, their communication attempts grew more sophisticated. They'd broadcast mathematical sequences, scientific formulas, and even basic pictograms designed to establish common ground with a primitive civilization. Their messages were patient and friendly, following protocols that had successfully initiated contact with dozens of other species. But Earth remained silent. The lack of response puzzled Commander Voss and his diplomatic team. Most primitive civilizations either responded with fear and confusion or with primitive attempts at communication. Earth's complete silence was unusual and slightly concerning. Their sensors showed that the planet's inhabitants were clearly aware of the fleet's presence, as their primitive communication networks were buzzing with activity and their basic military forces had been placed on alert. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface," reported Chief Science Officer Droll Corvin, his multiple arms manipulating complex sensor controls. "Nothing threatening, but there are some readings that don't quite match our initial technological assessment." Thane frowned, his species equivalent of expressing concern. "Unusual how?" "Hard to say exactly," Corvin replied, his voice carrying the uncertainty that came with encountering something outside established parameters. "There are energy patterns in their industrial centers that seem more sophisticated than their apparent technological level would suggest. It could be natural phenomena, or perhaps they're more advanced in certain areas than our initial scans indicated." The Zephyrian fleet had encountered developing civilizations before that showed uneven technological development. Some species advanced quickly in certain areas while remaining primitive in others. It wasn't unusual, but it was worth monitoring closely. Unknown to the aliens, every energy signature they detected had been carefully calculated and placed. Human engineers had spent years creating false readings that would suggest slightly more advanced technology than initially apparent, but nothing that would alarm a peaceful exploration fleet. The goal was to maintain the deception while gradually revealing just enough capability to make their eventual response seem plausible. As the first day of the alien presence passed, Commander Voss grew increasingly concerned about Earth's silence. His fleet maintained their non-threatening posture, broadcasting continuous messages of friendship and scientific cooperation. The planet below showed clear signs of a civilization in upheaval, with increased military activity and communication traffic that suggested the population was aware of their presence. "Perhaps they're simply afraid," suggested diplomatic officer Nerazeth, her green skin showing the calm patterns that indicated rational thought. A primitive species encountering advanced technology for the first time might need additional time to overcome their initial shock. But something felt wrong to Thane. In his years of first contact experience, he had developed an instinct for reading civilizations and their likely responses. Earth's behavior didn't match any pattern he had encountered before. The complete lack of communication attempts, combined with the subtle energy signatures his science team was detecting, suggested something more complex was happening. Deep in her underground facility, Dr. Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the alien fleet's growing confusion. Phase 1 of humanity's response was proceeding perfectly. The aliens were exactly where they were supposed to be, behaving exactly as predicted, and completely unaware that they were already trapped in a web of deception that had been spinning around them since the moment they entered the solar system. The real show was about to begin. The Vanishing Act. Into the Void. The second day of the Zephyrian fleet's presence around Earth began with what Commander Thane Voss would later describe in his final log as the first impossible event. Lieutenant Curazon was monitoring the fleet's perimeter sensors when she noticed something that shouldn't have been possible according to every law of physics her species understood. "Commander, I'm reading energy fluctuations in Grid Sector 7, she reported, her tentacles moving rapidly across her controls as she tried to make sense of the data flowing across her screens. "The readings are unlike anything in our databases." Thane moved to her station and studied the sensor displays. The energy patterns showed massive power concentrations moving beneath Earth's surface, but the readings were inconsistent with the planet's apparent technological level. More disturbing was the fact that the energy signatures seemed to be spreading, as if some kind of network was activating across the entire planet. Could it be natural geological phenomena? He asked, though his instincts told him otherwise. "Negative, sir," Kira replied, her voice carrying growing concern. "These patterns show clear signs of artificial generation and control. Sir, I think we may have underestimated this civilization's true capabilities." The Zephyrian fleet had positioned itself in a standard exploration formation around Earth, with scout ships maintaining close observation positions, while the main fleet remained at a safe distance. It was a formation that had been used successfully for centuries, allowing for detailed study while maintaining security and the option for rapid withdrawal if necessary. But as the morning progressed, subtle changes began occurring throughout the fleet. Navigation systems started reporting minor discrepancies in positional data. Communication arrays experienced brief moments of interference that couldn't be explained by natural phenomena. Most concerning of all, several scout ships reported temporary sensor blackouts that lasted only seconds but left their crews disoriented and confused. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the alien fleet's growing confusion from her command center buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored displays that showed the true scope of humanity's response to the alien presence. What the Zephyrians were experiencing as minor technical difficulties was actually the opening phase of the most sophisticated military operation in human history. Phase 2 initialization complete, reported her tactical officer, Commander James Park, from his position at the quantum warfare console. "All displacement generators are online and synchronized. We can begin selective targeting whenever you give the order." Elena nodded, her eyes never leaving the main tactical display that showed every alien ship in perfect detail. Humanity's true defensive capabilities were unlike anything that existed elsewhere in the galaxy, based on scientific principles that other species had never discovered. The technology that made their response possible had been developed in absolute secrecy over the past 30 years, using theoretical physics that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. "Begin with the outer perimeter scouts," she ordered. "Make it look like equipment failures or natural phenomena. We need them confused, not panicked." The first Zephyrian scout ship to vanish was the Swift Current, a small research vessel positioned near Earth's moon to monitor lunar gravitational effects on the planet's technology. Chief Petty Officer Zalbrennan was conducting routine sensor sweeps when his display suddenly began showing impossible readings. "What in the void is happening to our systems?" he muttered to his pilot, Ensign Mora Chen, as their instruments registered energy patterns that violated basic physics. The space around their ship seemed to be shifting, as if reality itself was becoming unstable. "I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations," Mora reported, her voice tight with concern as she tried to maintain their position. "It's like space-time is being manipulated around us. But that's impossible. No known technology can affect quantum fields on this scale." The swift current tried to transmit a warning to the main fleet, but their communication system encountered what seemed to be a barrier of some kind. Their signals were being absorbed or redirected, making contact with their command ship impossible. As the quantum fluctuations intensified, the crew experienced a strange sensation of displacement, as if they were being moved through dimensions that didn't exist. Then, in a moment that defied every law of physics the Zephyrians understood, the swift current simply ceased to exist in Earth's solar system. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving behind no debris, no energy signature, and no trace that it had ever been present. Commander Voss received the first reports of missing ships with growing alarm. Within 6 hours, 3 more scout vessels had vanished under similar circumstances. Each disappearance was preceded by reports of impossible energy readings and quantum fluctuations that their science teams couldn't explain. "Sir, I recommend we withdraw to a safer distance," advised Chief Science Officer Corvin, his multiple arms gesturing toward displays that showed energy patterns spreading throughout the entire solar system. "Whatever technology the inhabitants of this planet possess, it's far beyond our ability to understand or counter." But Thane was reluctant to abandon the mission without understanding what was happening. The Zephyrian Empire had never encountered a situation like this, where ships simply vanish without any apparent cause or explanation. His duty as a fleet commander required him to gather as much information as possible before withdrawing. "Deploy additional sensor probes," he ordered. "I want to understand what we're dealing with before we leave. Whatever these humans are doing, we need to report it to High Command with enough detail for them to make informed decisions about future contact." The sensor probes lasted less than an hour before they too began disappearing. Each probe transmitted data for a brief period, recording energy patterns and quantum effects that challenged everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about physics, before vanishing as completely as the scout ships had. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen coordinated the global response from humanity's primary command facility. The room around her was filled with displays showing alien ship positions, energy readings from their displacement generators, and tactical analyses that updated in real time. Her team had spent years preparing for this moment, running simulations and refining their approach until it was perfect. "The alien fleet is showing signs of panic," reported her tactical analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos. "Their formation is beginning to break down as they try to understand what's happening to their ships." "Maintain the gradual escalation," Sarah ordered. "We want them confused and concerned, but not desperate enough to attempt a hostile response. Phase 3 can begin once they've lost 50% of their scout vessels." The technology behind humanity's response was based on discoveries that had revolutionized their understanding of spacetime and quantum mechanics. By manipulating quantum fields at the subatomic level, human scientists had learned to create what they called displacement zones, areas of space where matter could be moved to alternate dimensional frameworks without violating the conservation of energy. To an outside observer, objects caught in a displacement field simply vanished. In reality, they were shifted to parallel dimensional spaces where they continued to exist but could no longer interact with normal spacetime. The technology required enormous amounts of energy and precise coordination, but it allowed humanity to make threats disappear without the need for destructive weapons or violent confrontation. As more Zephyrian ships vanished, Commander Voss found himself facing a crisis unlike anything in his military career. His fleet was being systematically eliminated by a force he couldn't detect, understand, or fight. The energy readings his sensors detected suggested technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Zephyrian Empire possessed, hidden beneath the facade of a primitive civilization. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the planet's surface," reported Communications Officer Talvarin, her voice carrying surprise and concern. "It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies in our own language." The message that appeared on Thane's main display was simple and direct, delivered by a human woman whose calm demeanor was more unsettling than any threat could have been. "Commander Voss, this is Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. We are aware of your peaceful intentions, and we appreciate your Empire's policy of nonviolent first contact. However, we must inform you that Earth is not ready for formal diplomatic relations at this time. We respectfully request that your fleet withdraw from our solar system within the next 12 hours. The transmission continued with technical specifications that made Thane's science officers exchange worried glances. The humans were casually discussing energy manipulation techniques and quantum field theories that represented significant advances over Zephyrian science. It was clear that Earth's apparent primitive status was an elaborate deception. "How is this possible?" whispered Chief Science Officer Corvin as he studied the technical data included in the human message. "These quantum manipulation techniques should require industrial capabilities that span entire star systems. How could a species we assessed as barely space-capable possess such advanced physics knowledge?" The answer came in the form of more vanishing ships. As the deadline approached, larger vessels began disappearing from the Zephyrian fleet. Cruisers and research ships simply ceased to exist. Their crews and equipment shifted to dimensional spaces that existed parallel to but separate from normal reality. Commander Voss made his final decision as he watched his flagship's escort vessels vanish one by one. The Stellar Wanderer was now alone in Earth's solar system, surrounded by energy fields that could eliminate his ship as easily as they had destroyed the rest of his fleet. "Emergency transmission to High Command," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of defeat and confusion. "Report total mission failure. Earth civilization possesses advanced technology far exceeding our capabilities. They have eliminated our entire exploration fleet without engaging in hostile action. Recommend immediate reclassification of this system as a major galactic power and potential threat." His final log entry was recorded as the quantum fields began affecting his flagship's systems. Personal note: "We came to Earth expecting to encounter a primitive species in need of guidance and protection. Instead, we found a civilization that has achieved mastery over forces we don't understand. They could have destroyed us, but instead they simply made us disappear. I don't know if that makes them more merciful or more terrifying than a conventional enemy." The Stellar Wanderer faded from normal spacetime, just as Commander Voss finished his transmission. Like the rest of his fleet, the massive exploration ship was shifted to a parallel dimensional framework, where it would continue to exist, but could never return to threaten Earth or report its location to the Zephyrian Empire. In the aftermath, Earth's solar system appeared empty and peaceful to any external observers. The Zephyrian High Command received only fragments of Voss's final transmission, garbled data that suggested their exploration fleet had encountered some kind of natural phenomenon or equipment failure. Without clear evidence of what had happened, they classified the system as dangerous due to unknown spatial anomalies and marked it as off-limits for future exploration. Captain Alina Rodriguez submitted her final report to Earth's Secret Defense Council, documenting the complete success of Operation Silent Shield. An entire alien fleet had been neutralized without a single shot being fired, using technology that demonstrated humanity's true place among the galaxy's civilizations. Earth remained hidden behind its facade of primitive development, protected by the greatest deception in galactic history and defended by technologies that other species couldn't imagine. The aliens had come seeking a primitive world to add to their empire, but instead they had encountered something far more dangerous, a species that had learned to survive by making their enemies simply disappear. The Zephyrian Empire would eventually forget about Earth, dismissing it as another dangerous system to be avoided. But deep beneath Earth's surface, human scientists continued their work, preparing for the day when the next alien fleet would arrive and discover that some civilizations were far more dangerous when they appeared weak than when they showed their true strength.